Hey, welcome back to another episode of Let's Get To It. This is episode 16. My name is Sarah.
My name is Mujib.
And today we're going to talk about adornment and majesty and probably a little bit of beauty. And
Yeah, totally.
so our listeners are going, what? So put that into context for us, Mujib.
Definitely. I think that oftentimes when we think about adornment, it's easy to think of jewelry or think of, something that we're doing to our bodies. But even talking about like just the basic definition of adornment is to make something beautiful, whether that's a place, like pictures might adorn a wall or something like that. So when I think about adornment, I think about the ways personally that I set my space up in order to reflect what I find as being beautiful. And then something that I just said a second ago in our pre-conversation was also looking at how that applies to the things that I tend to do in my life. So looking at something like going to Rock Point, right, and overlooking Lake Champlain, and how that moment can be an adornment for my life, like that sunset, that beautiful color. If I take a picture of that sunset, I can put that picture on my wall, and I can adorn my space with that. So maybe I can adorn my own lifestyle by going to beautiful places, by being around people that I deem of being beautiful, whether that's physically beautiful or it's just their entirety is beautiful. Or by, again, giving myself things. I have tattoos all over my body, so thinking of that as my adornments. And then also not just like that I have adornments, but why are those things so important? Like all of my tattoos have meaning to me, and that meaning reflects itself every single time that I see them. So that's kind of where my mind goes with it.
I love that. And obviously adornment, it has a very positive connotation. The assumption is that, these things make you feel good at the end of the day, and it creates a, what you're doing in your household or your workspace or whatever, it's creating a sense of comfort, or I think a lot about the home in particular, and certainly with COVID and the pandemic, a lot of people perhaps are spending more time at home or having to carve out space in their home for a home office, or your home with children perhaps, or you want to make that space as comfortable and as beautiful as you can. And I know I've spent some extra time over the last several months making my home a little bit more of a sanctuary and a space that I really that's just put together the way I want it, with the right comfy throw blankets and pillows, and even I bought more plants this year to just kind of feel that nature and that green energy in the space and things like that. So I've paid a little extra attention than usual in the last several months of
And even just watching your own movements as you're saying this, even as I'm seeing it and hearing in your voice, I see the value of adornment, like thinking about those plants. It takes that second to uplift or to add energy into a space. And I think about adornment as that, like adding that energy in. So if I am doing more work from home and I want my space to be a certain way, that could be like the feng shui idea, where I want the flow, I want the energy to flow a certain way. Or it could be like, where do I want my mind to go? If I put that beautiful painting from my in-law on the wall that shows the beautiful place, then every time I see that, it's going to bring my energy to that place. Or like I was having a conversation with my sister on Zoom, and we were just talking about, like, she had these beautiful earrings on, and it was like, wow, you have some really beautiful earrings on. She's like, yeah, thanks, I put these on for the conversation, for the Zoom call. And it was just that idea of taking a moment to, and it wasn't for me, it was for her. Like, she put them on herself because maybe her day was going a certain way, in which she was like, you know what, I'm gonna put some earrings on and kind of like boost up my day a little bit, beautify myself in this moment. We talk about that even with like getting dressed in a certain way. Like if I'm going to be working from home, I'm going to put my finest on because I want to bring my energy into the space that it would be if we were face to face, So again, it's just, for me, so much of the energetics around adornment is the most important thing,
It's amazing how an inanimate object can have that kind of energy and that power. And I think it's been kind of a disservice. I feel like I love athleisure. I spend a lot of time in athleisure, but with sort of the celebration of you just wear comfy pants all the time. I love comfy pants, but you kind of just lose the sense of self and this power and, you know, the importance of putting on that, you know, outfit, whatever it is for you, or getting certain pieces of jewelry or wearing your hair a certain way, and maybe, you know, putting on makeup or not wearing makeup or getting the nails done or not, like whatever it is for you, whatever just sort of, you know, puts things together, and how does that make you feel?
Right.
Like that's the thing, like, you know, assembling that outfit. And you know, I think I mentioned this to you, Mujib, that if my mom is listening, I'm going to blow up my mom's spot right now, but that, you know, my mom has really been in COVID isolation pretty much since this thing went down. And my mom has beautiful clothing. I look up to my mom and my mom's sense of style. It's really creative. It's rebellious. It's not traditional. She's gorgeous. She's in her late 60s, and she's just beautiful, big pieces of jewelry. She dresses loud, like I'm here. I have arrived, and I've always really admired that about her. And she's always got red lipstick on. There's just things about my mom that I'm like, yeah, that's like my mom's style. Through, you know, when you see something in the store and you're like, oh, that's so and so. My mom's name is Gail. I'll be like, oh my God, that's a Gail jacket or something, you know. And my mom just, you know, for no other reason than just wanting to feel good, started wearing her jewelry again and dressing up. Like it didn't, even if she wasn't seeing anybody, even if she wasn't getting on Zoom or Facebook or anything. And we had talked about that, and she's like, I just need to like feel good again. Right. Like, you know, and these things like help that, like that energy of those things, you know,
those beautifying moments, you know.
Yeah. And it's important that, you know, I think that it's not just kind of like dissolving or like, you know, succumbing to like, oh, I'm at home, so I'm at home and I just have to be in the bathrobe or something. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess that was Hugh Hefner and his signature thing, but, you know, maybe if you're like living the Hugh Hefner lifestyle, but yeah, definitely just the feeling of putting on some clothes or some jewelry that has some weight to it.
Yeah. And I mean, you spoke to it so clearly. It's so individual too, you know, like, everybody's gonna be a little bit different. And I think about it mostly when I think about tattoos, you know, like I have tattoos that you might not like on your body, but I need them on my body. You know what I mean? And I know people who have tattoos on their bodies that I would never want to put on my body. So that's the type of thing that can be so individual. And again, if we're talking about like beautifying our space, or if we're talking about like controlling or commanding our own energy, that's for me, that's what adornment's all about. Like, can I put the things in my space that remind me of the things that I need to be reminded of on a regular moment to moment basis, so that I can keep myself going in the direction that I'm going in. We talk a lot on this podcast about setting intentions, about goals, and about basically like creating the lifestyle and the person who we're trying to become daily and moment by moment. So for me, it's the things that show me not just that I'm on the right track, but it's committing to that track. It's saying, you know, with the tattoos, of course, it's that. And I'll tell the story kind of about my tattoos in a moment. But in this, I put this on, or I put this on my wall, or I got this crystal and it sits next to my bed. I'm committing to myself, like, this is important to me. I remember that when I put this piece of amethyst on the windowsill, like, I wake up, I see it. That's important to me. The story behind it might not mean anything to you, you know, but it might mean everything to me. And so, again, taking the time, taking that time aside, or taking that moment to pause and to say, like, what can I do in this moment to either present myself with something, or put something on display, or honor myself with something, anoint myself with oil or something like that, that kind of brings me into that energetic space that I'm trying to get into. Even if it's just like a creative space, right? So we talked about creativity a little earlier, and like having the time to slow down and get creative. Well, then what are the things that surround you to kind of boost your creativity? For me, sometimes it's different scents. You know, we like to have a lot of rose scent around, or, you know, I have an oil that my wife made for me that smells like my father. So for that, it's like when I put that oil on, it brings me into a whole different mind state, you know, and a whole different physical presentation of myself. So, and that's oil. That's not a piece of jewelry. It's a beautiful Lunaroma body oil too. So it's not even like you can't smell it when I have it on. You know, like I can smell it. My wife can smell it when she gets close. My son can smell it. My family, anybody that I'm embracing can smell it. But that's for us. Like it's not even for the external world. Like if I have a cologne on, maybe that's for everybody else to smell me and say, "Ooh, that smells nice." But that oil, me anointing myself in that oil, is simply for me, for my energy. You know. So again, it goes back to that.
Yeah, I also think too. I don't know what your experience is with acting. And being in plays or anything.
No, not really. I don't have any.
So I have a little background in, I don't know if we've ever talked about this. I've done a lot of musical theater in my day and some straight plays as well. But one of the best parts about being an actor is that moment when you step into character. And the most fun when you're taking a script and bringing it to life and bringing a character to life. You know, you go through all the rehearsals and stuff, and then you get to the dress rehearsal. And that first dress rehearsal, when you finally put the costume on, and maybe you get the wig, and maybe there's jewelry, maybe it's not, but you literally, like, you step into that character, and it's so powerful. And that's usually what seals the deal. And it's always super fun if you know, folks that have been in a production before, you know, when you leave that sort of rehearsal space where everyone's just showing up as they are and, you know, you're whatever. And then it's like everybody, you see all the characters and it's like everyone is leveled up. And it's that adornment. It's the energy of the, you know, the right jacket or the right shoes or whatever that really sort of completes it and lets your mind take you to that space. So I think of that even in our daily lives when we talk, like you've mentioned, the process of becoming constantly, like our expression of this is who I am and also a little bit of this is who I want to be, you know, or, you know, having certain clothing or shoes or whatever signal, you know, I want to be like this person. Or the last couple nights I've been watching The Last Dance, the documentary about the Bulls dynasty, and I'm watching, I'm like, I gotta get some Air Jordans, man. Like, and I just had this impulse to like order a number 23 jersey, you know, like I was just, because I was so highly motivated and inspired by, you know, I'm like, man, I want to adorn myself in like a Jordan jersey and just hope that it like gives me some MJ energy, you know? So yeah, it's kind of like, you know, I have a picture of Megan Rapinoe next to my desk. And she's, you know, she's rocking some ice and a World Cup trophy, like with the number 4, like this is number 4, everybody, you know, so there's that power. So like I draw some energy off of like most of my heroes come from, you know, sports or music. So, yeah, it's powerful. It's like, okay, I want to step into that.
Totally. And I welcome the listener to ask yourself, like, what are the things that you are doing to kind of promote that energy, to bring you up into that higher self, to level you up in that way? And again, it doesn't have to be, you know, something that you're buying. It could be even just where you sit in your house. Like, how does that make you feel? Like, where do you go when you need to take a breath? Why do you go there? If you're listening to this and you don't have those things, you haven't even ever thought about, like, wow, like, what do I do for myself that helps me beautify my life? Then maybe this is inspiration to kind of start to do that, to see like, wow, you know, I always go for this walk and I always take a left at this trail, but maybe I'll go out to these cliffs on the right and I'll just see what I find. You know, chances are you're going to find something that is amazing. I don't know. And that's how I feel about nature in that sense of like, let me take some time to go to a place where I think it's beautiful and see how that's going to inspire me as a person. But I'm very nature oriented. That tends to be where I go and where I try to spend a lot of my free time or my time when I'm trying to think or something like that, you know.
So I wanna redirect the conversation back to the tattoos, because you said you were gonna tell the story.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm not gonna let you forget. I want to hear the story.
Rad. I mean, when we talk about like becoming and like and setting an intention or like I say oftentimes, like leaving a trinket for myself in the future, right? Where I can say like, okay, I'll just tell the story flat out. So for the listeners who can't see me, I have a series of circles tattooed on my body that get successively bigger. It's basically like a set of 3 circles, and it goes from my left hand up my hand, and then it goes another set of 3 up my forearm, a set of 3 that encompasses my biceps, my kind of deltoid, front deltoid, like the front of my shoulder, and my chest. And then on the other side, the same thing, chest, deltoid, biceps, forearm, and then palm. And then I have them on my ring finger under my wedding ring, and then I'm going to get them again tattooed, and another tattoo of a yarrow plant on my hand and wrist. But the 3 tattoos, and I even have them again, like represented in another spot. Long story short, though, as far as it goes, I was literally driving down the street, kind of in a mind frame, and it's full transparency, right? This is pre-North Country kettlebells, right? And before Mujib was a fitness trainer, just a heavy kettlebell lifter, kind of, I think I was smoking a Marlboro Red, driving down the street in my Saturn, going to my kitchen job at some dive restaurant. God-awful job. It was horrible, and I felt like a horrible person even just like working there, because I was like surrounded by shit that was making me just like indulge myself in habits that I didn't want to have, and creating a mind frame that I really didn't like. Like, I had just broken up with my partner because I was kind of like an asshole to her, and like my friends, I kind of hated everybody I was around. Like, I really just hated my lifestyle ultimately. And I was very destructive in that moment. And I'm like driving to work, and I had made this comment to a friend of mine some years previously that I was like, you know, I had this kind of vision, right? It was funny. I was like 19. I was like, I had this vision, man. Like, it's going to be a sign of the times when birds of a different feather flock together. You know, it was like that phrase that just come to my mind. And the guy was like a naturalist. He was like, that's impossible. I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, birds of different feathers don't flock together. I was like, no, it's going to be like when eagles fly around and vultures, or hawks and herons, you know what I mean? And this guy was just like, that's not possible. So basically, as I'm telling this guy, you know, this is a thought that I've had, a vision that I've had. Like, you're going to see a situation in which birds have to kind of like flock together, even though they're different types of birds. And, you know, in hindsight, it's funny because I've watched enough National Geographics. Like, that's really a basic thing that happens. Animals like birds land on hippos and they all walk around together. Like, birds of different feather do flock together. But I had been in this mind frame at the time that was like, I'm around these people who are telling me that that's not possible, even though it's something that I am feel in my heart, like there's going to be a sign of the times. And that I guess is the thing about personal visions, is like, it means something to me, but it doesn't mean anything to anybody else. And so, you know, that was years before this moment that I'm talking about, driving down the street to this kitchen job, smoking this horrible cigarette. And not just because cigarettes are horrible, but Marlboro Reds are gross. And so I'm smoking that, and I see this heron, great blue heron, come flying out over I was in Montpelier, so it's coming out like from over the Montpelier Reservoir, the Wrightsville Reservoir. And I see this heron come flying out, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then the heron starts flying around in a circle on like a thermal. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I've never really seen that before. And then I see this hawk come flying out, like this red-tailed hawk, come flying out and start flying around the same thermal with the great blue heron. And I was like, oh shit. And I like stopped my car. I'm like, I've never seen this before. And then I see a vulture come flying out. And now I'm watching a great blue heron, a turkey vulture, and a fucking like a red-tailed hawk or something like that flying around in a circle together and around the same thermal. And I was just like fascinated by it. I stopped. I'm looking at this shit. I watched them as they like circle and circle and circle and fly out of the view. And I was just like, oh, everything is different now. Like, crushed the cigarette pack, threw it on the ground. Was just like, I don't know what this means, but everything is different now. Because I'm telling you, like, I had this vision in my mind that was like, you're gonna see this thing, and it's gonna signal to you that the shit is about to change, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I held that in my heart. Sure as shit, didn't tell anybody about it, because the people that I was around, like, they were already gonna shoot my shit down. If I was like, man, I saw this crazy vision, it was a fucking omen or something, they were gonna be like, whatever, what are you, a shaman or something, you know what I mean? Try to, like, probably, I felt, at least in the moment, and in hindsight, it was probably true, they were gonna, like, shoot me down, and I would have given them the opportunity to, like, shut myself down, even though I'm seeing something that I knew was significant to me. And so, and it's funny because, like, I knew it was significant to me then, and you might say like, well, it was only significant because you said it was significant, but I have these tattoos all over my body now. You know what I mean? Like I see them when I wake up first thing in the morning all the time. Like I see them when I look at myself. So it was obviously significant. And I just knew then that it was significant. I didn't know how significant it was going to be. So the first time that I got them was on my forearm. I was working in a kitchen. I had been a kettlebell trainer at this point because, again, I changed my path at that point. I went, got kettlebell certified by the end of that year, started training people within 2 years of that point in time, quit that job pretty soon after that. Maybe like even that week I quit that job. And so I put the tattoo on my forearm first where it was above the dishwater, right? Because I was working in a kitchen job where I had to do the dishes as well. So I would cook and then I have to do the dishes in the sink. And so I got the tattoo like right above the line of the dishwater. I put it on myself like a stick and poke. And then when I quit the job, which is, you know, what we've talked about previously, I got fired and I decided I wasn't going to go back to the kitchen job. I had my friend Beatrix tattoo them on my hands with stick and poke again. So a needle sitting at my thing, tattoo these things on my palm so I can always see them, or on the back of my hand so I can always see them. And little side note there, where I can always see them when I'm lifting kettlebells, because it lets me know where my hand position is. Yeah, totally. So that's also why I put them there. So I could always see them whenever I had my hands out. And so I put them there. And at the time that I put them on my hands, I knew, I was like, I'm going to put these all over my body. I'm going to put this circle. So the tattoo is small bird, medium bird, big bird, right? And they switch places, but they're just going in the same direction the whole time. So if I put my hands like this, the tattoo is actually just going in the same direction. It goes like that, even though one is going in and one's coming out. But they just let me know, like, the world is always going in the same way. You know what I mean? So I tattooed them there on my hands when I lost the kitchen job. And then when I was like, I'm committing to myself, like, I'm going to be myself. I'm committing to being Mujib. I tattooed them on my forearms where, like, you can't miss them, you know, when I have no sleeves on. Like, but they were open rings, you know? And so then... and my friend Beatrix is the one that put them on my palms, on my forearms, and on my biceps to my chest and around, and on my wedding ring finger as well. So thanks, B. You're amazing. But either way, you know, it's like, it's something that I continue to come back to. It's a commitment. It's a recommitment every single time. So, like, by the time I had them all circled on my body, they weren't colored in yet, but I had them there, and I was like, wow, I'm looking at my life, and I'm really becoming the person who's going to wear these tattoos, you know? And now at this point, they're all filled in, blacked in. The biggest one's probably like the size of my palm, and then the smallest one's probably like the size of my pinky nail, that sort of idea, at least except for the ones on my ring finger are really small. But yeah, so those tattoos for me, they mean a lot. They represent these three birds of prey that are different feathers that are flocking together. But more importantly, they represent for me a turning point in my entire life that says, you know, you are going to live now for more than just like the destruction of self. You're going to live for the uplifting of yourself. Like we talked about the energy, like something adornment is to uplift. Like these aren't destructive tattoos. I put them on me because they remind me that I'm going in a certain direction in my life and that I can't deviate, you know? And so to adorn myself with the tattoos, I can't wear them and live a life that doesn't honor them. You know what I mean? So for me, they're my commitment tattoos. That's why I put them on my hands. That's why I put them on my forearms. That's why I put them where I can see them. If I don't have my shirt on, I can always see these tattoos. And every time that I see them, they remind me of number one, fuck anybody else's opinion. Like, don't let somebody else shoot my what I know is the truth down. And then B, number two, like, stay committed to the path that I've put myself on, or rather that I've been put on, that I noticed that I'm on, you know? So that's the tattoo story as far as like why I have them, why I'll continue to get them. They're circles just because they're pretty complex birds to have done, and because I was having somebody stick and poke them, and I didn't actually have somebody to tattoo gun them on me until I filled them in. That's why I didn't get like a big ass great blue heron on my chest and a hawk on my right shoulder and a vulture on my left shoulder or something like that. It was more just like, okay, these dots will represent this until I'm at the point where I can get these tattoos actually on my body. Wow. Totes.
I love that story so much. That's so powerful because it's like, it's also we talk a lot about just awareness, right? And the compass or the intuition and tuning into nature and other things. And like, that was just such a clear, like, that was you tuning into that moment of nature and like the majesty of like nature and your surroundings. And you're like, yeah, I get it, man. Like, I see that. And then that, it's like so powerful.
Right.
It's just amazing. Not for nothing, maybe just a strange coincidence. My college mascot, we were the Herons.
Oh, yeah. Not for nothing at all.
Yeah, I don't know. Not a super common mascot out there, I don't think. Go William Smith. Anybody that is upstate New York. But very, very, very cool. That's, it makes me think a lot about, people have their opinions on tattoos, surgeries, things that, when we alter our bodies, and there's like a lot of talk back and forth, about that. And we had mentioned this, how many years ago was that, Mujib?
That was 2007.
So that was 2007. So that's 13 years ago. Okay. Because so before we started recording, you had mentioned to me about the, if you saw a picture of yourself 10 years ago, or maybe 10 to 15 years ago, do that, where were you at? Anybody can play at home here, right. To pull out that memory book. I just keep aging myself. What? The Facebook, go online. I don't know. And that brought up for me so much because sometimes you don't realize how much you've changed in a certain amount of time until you get a moment to sort of really focus on the timeline. And 10 years, like so much can happen in 10 years, and does. And so I'm like, 10 years ago, I was in a very different headspace and not feeling particularly self-confident and proud of myself, and didn't adorn myself really in any particular way. In fact, I usually picked a lot of clothing that I thought really hid my figure and appearance. And I'm someone that had maybe other listeners have felt this way, where you just feel like not really at home in your body, and that things don't really make a lot of sense, or you look in the mirror and you're like, I don't know, or I want to change this. And some of that is definitely attributed to like a body dysmorphia for sure. But then just some of it just kind of felt like a mismatch. So I had a larger chest, I guess, so larger breasts. And for years and years and years and years, I wanted to have a reduction and have surgery. And so it was very well thought out, and I was also seeking advice and counsel from a therapist. And so it was, it was not a rush to judgment in terms of, it's a very serious thing to have somebody like cut into my body and change something about my physical appearance. And I took that very seriously, and I can't even begin to tell you. So I went ahead to have the surgery, and it was like, I don't know, like it was a huge turning point for me when we talk about sort of like life turning points, or significant moments in our lives. And suddenly, not only did I feel a certain way, physically lighter, my proportions were suddenly different. I was like, all right, I'm going to step into this role. Like, I want to be a trainer. I want to be, a fitness, not even entrepreneur at that point. I was like, okay, I'm going to get my personal training certification. It just led me into a series of moves and different things in my life that very quickly from that point, I opened Rev in 2012. So we're talking from the time I was recovering from surgery 2 years later. Mm-hmm. Like, I was suddenly starting I was a fitness entrepreneur. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I had just graduated with a master's in political science, and literally 2 weeks later, I was having a breast reduction surgery, and then 2 years later, it's like I'm opening a gym. What the? But and maybe our listeners like have that thing where they're like, okay, maybe it's a piercing, and maybe it's a tattoo, or maybe it's the way you wear your hair, or, something that another physical change to the body, or maybe it's not physical at all, but it's that sort of becomes a significant turning point. I know, we've talked about the hair and things like that, where it's a part of our identity. What does it say about us? How do we feel? Who do we step into? And I can really identify with that moment in a different way. I don't have tattoos, but for me, it was, it's a very significant activity to the body, a trauma even, actually. But one that I felt was just like, it was just like turning the corner. Like,
right.
Okay, yeah, now I'm ready. Like, now I'm feeling it. I'm gonna, and then it was like no looking back,
right.
And it's and I've got pictures, it's like you've got pictures of Mujib before the tattoos, and I've got pictures of myself before the surgery, and it's, anybody that I've met in my life now, they're like, I can't imagine you, like I can't imagine you any other way, I guess that's good. I mean, I don't know. Of course I was another way, but it's just interesting. I wonder what other folks, like, what is it for our listeners that, if they've had an experience that is a significant, like, turning point, for people.
Right.
Whatever it is. If it's, maybe it is sorry, Dad. My dad was very anti-piercing and stuff like that. My dad was, kind of don't put anything on your face, and I don't know, just kind of a list of things. And of course it made me want to do that more, right? Because my dad didn't approve of it. But I pierced my nose a few years ago. I've since taken it out, but I loved my nose piercing. Like, I just felt like a goddess with a nose piercing. Like, and I'll probably do it again now that I'm talking about it, because I miss it. But my nose was not super receptive to the piercing. It was one of those, like, it never really healed, and I had it for a year, and it was troublesome. So I reluctantly took it out, and like, it closed within like 24 hours. Like, that's how much my body was like, no, thank you. But, I loved that kind of adornment. I had this big opal in my schnozzle, and I absolutely loved it. And, we'll do it again. Yeah. But yeah, just the power of that.
I think about it as like, there's a bit of control claiming.
Yeah.
It's a bit of like, this is my life. Like, this is the life that I've been given, and nobody else has a say over it. Like, I can't have anybody else be responsible for my happiness or my joy or my pleasure. Like, I can't put that on somebody else, We can share space, and we can share joy, and we can share excitement. But at the end of the day, like, the things that I'm going to do for myself are going to have the biggest effect on me. And when we do these body modifications, I find that, there is a power in them that for me comes from the taking control of my own life. And especially when I think about tattoos and piercings for that matter, I think about something that we've talked about in the past, which is like these Puritan ideals of what skin is supposed to look like. If you get tattoos, you're going to have to not be buried in the certain cemetery, or you'll have no limbs in the afterlife, or all these different, like, kind of, like, what do you call, like,
folklore
or whatever belief structures that other people might hold and put on, that we might try to, like, put on ourselves for some odd reason. This is a way to say, like, you know what, that might be your belief structure, that might work for you well, but I'm going to need to put these things on my body, or I'm going to have to do this thing because I'm not where I know I can be. Like, I'm not mentally where I know I want to be. My energy it's not what I need it to be in order for me to be able to go forward from here. So in this turning point moment, I'm going to put this tattoo, or I'm going to hang this picture of my grandmother, or I'm going to get this crystal for myself, or I'm going to buy something for my loved one, you know what I mean? Or I'm going to try to beautify my life in some way, shape, or form. And again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Like I said, like, my tattoos might not be beautiful to you, but they're fucking gorgeous to me, And that, I think, is the most important thing about these kind of moments of adornment, or these turning point moments where we make these modifications to ourselves or to our space or to the things that we're doing, in order to affect our energy in the direction that we're trying to go.
And hearing you say that about, you might not like it, but it's gorgeous to me. It just makes me think a lot about, self-love, and we've talked about it so much, how you think about yourself and that you are accountable to yourself first and foremost. And I know many times in my life, I've made decisions and lived out decisions based on other people's approval and expectations. And more often than not, I've been disappointed and or unhappy. Whether that's dressing a certain way, wearing my hair a certain way, taking a certain job, a lot of different examples of that. And it's kind of only when I've had to step back. I used to get my my eyelashes done and whatever, no, if people like doing that, that's great. It wasn't very practical for me. I sweat a lot. My occupational hazard, a lot of sweat. And, I liked him. I certainly liked having full lashes. It was fun, but I was also kind of feeling like, why do I like it? Oh, because I see a lot of, the mainstream photographs that I'm seeing are women with really full, luscious lashes. And so I kind of succumbed to some of that, marketing, and feeling like, oh, I need that, or I want to look more awake and whatever. And then just kind of realizing it was really not practical. Also sometimes thinking oh, I want to either make myself more attractive to men, so I'm going to do the lashes, and I'm going to, go down the list. And I was single at the time, and presenting myself a certain way. And then I'm super thankful to, sometimes it takes a partner or someone else in your life to kind of make you realize that you don't need all that other stuff. And so my partner, who I'm still with, was kind of why do you have that stuff on your eyes? And or why do you just kind of ask, and he's like, you don't need that. He's like, you have beautiful eyes. And it was whatever. And I think he's, supportive of, I've said it before on this podcast, I didn't ask permission to cut my hair. I came home with really short hair, and I was like, if he doesn't like it, I don't care. So, it's not like that, but, it made me, his talking to me about you're naturally a beautiful person. You don't need to do all this other stuff. And because I wasn't making choices, I wasn't doing the lashes for me because it felt good. I was like, all right, I don't need it. I'm going to ditch it. I can't keep up with the manicures and stuff. It just doesn't work for me. I'm always working with my hands. I'm picking up weights. I'm doing stuff. They're always chipping or scratch. So, whatever anybody brings them joy, makes them feel powerful. It's just kind of re-examining, okay, that doesn't make me, I don't need that in my life. So I'm not going to do the nails or the eyelashes, but I'm going to wear my hair a certain way, and I'm going to wear rings, and I'm going to do other things. So yeah, it's about finding what works for you and doing it for you because it feels good. I'm not going to do something because so-and-so says so, or so I think that's kind of important. Just the more you get in touch with your, I put this on, it makes me feel a certain way, and that's good. Not oh, I'm doing this to impress, or I'm doing this because I think so-and-so wants to see me like this.
Right.
Just kind of that, those fine little lines that, are that we all have to navigate and figure out. And they're going to change too.
Right.
They're totally going to change.
Totally.
And
reoccur.
And reoccur, totally. It's just our conversation last time about the different cycles and who knows? Maybe in 5 years I'll have long hair again because I might be I grew it out.
Right, because you wanted to.
Because I wanted to, it's whatever. Or I'm gonna start investing in wigs. I don't know. Maybe a little bit easier because growing your hair out takes time.
Right, and wigs are so fabulous anyway.
Oh my God, you could do anything. A friend of mine was like, dude, you need to start getting into wigs because it's just really fun. I'm like, all right. But I love the idea too of the home, and so talk to me about a couple things specifically in your home that sort of give you that energy or that calm or whatever.
We're huge on paintings for sure, and family oriented paintings. Where our dinner table is a painting of the house where my wife's grandmother grew up, and that's my son's namesake, Zeta, grew up in this house, and she painted this picture from kind of like a beautiful perspective, and it's like it's on the Long Island Sound, so it's in Stony Creek, Connecticut. So it's got like beautiful water, and it's a certain time of day where the tide is low, and you can tell that because all the docks are down, and it's just like this beautiful image that she painted, but of this place that is significant to my wife because it's where she grew up going, and then to me too because it's I've been there multiple times, and I can feel it. Like I love being there, and I love the community of people that we hang out with when we're there. So we put that kind of like on our dinner table. We can see it all the time. Cook some food, go to serve the food. Oh, there's Stony Creek, great. My son can look at it and see this place that he's gonna go someday. Things like that. We have another painting that my wife's sibling painted, and that's right inside of the door. It's of a place called Batibu Bay, which is in Dominica. We talk about the mountains and the ocean on the last episode, or 2 episodes back. But it's of the ocean and the mountains, and it's perspective that my wife took this picture from, and her sibling painted this picture and gave it to us, kind of as I don't know what the occasion was for the gift. It was just like a beautiful gift, and so that's kind of like on the front door, like right in front of the front door when you come in. So there's some things like that. Picture of my great-great-great-grandmother, like my grandfather's great-grandmother. And that's on the wall where I can see it all the time because she makes me think a certain way. Like when I see her picture, I think about who she was. I think about what she was about. And that brings me into a different place energetically. It reminds me of who I am. It reminds me what I'm cut from, things like that. Definitely have a lot of like beautiful crystals around my house, and I'm not somebody who really collected crystals. My crystal collection really comes from gifts from a client of mine who is a collector of crystals, and she's really just thoughtful, and she just loves sending us stuff. And again, it goes back into that appreciation. Like she's showing her appreciation to me by trying to beautify my space by sending me beautiful things. You know what I mean? So we have a lot of like amethyst caves, and she's a crystal collector, so she's really doing research to find these beautiful pieces and sending us why she sent them to us and so on and so forth. So a lot of people have given us kind of gifts like that, and those are just all over the place, littering the house. And for me, when we talk about majesty, like for me, looking at an amethyst cave gives me the same feelings of reverence that I get when I look at a sunset, because it's a earth-made thing. Like it's a beautiful, naturally occurring, like elemental thing that reminds me, like, this is earth. That is what earth is. It's not just the mundane shit of me like driving up and down the street. Like it is full of amethyst crystals and diamond mines, and not mines, but like diamond caves and all golden veins and things like that. Like all the stuff that this planet consists of that, was monetized or was kind of like put under into a commodified, and kind of, again, we've been removed from that. So to put those things into my space, it reminds me, like, this is what Earth is. It's beautiful. It's shiny. It's bright. It's colorful, so have a lot of crystals around. And then even just like the way that we set the space up to be like, it's set up here so when I open my eyes, I can see this certain thing. Like it's set up at this window so that when I open my eyes, I can look out that window as soon as I wake up. Or, like when I come down the stairs, like, this seat is not just here because it's a chair and convenient place to put it, but because we could have put the chair on the other side of the room. The chair is here because the moon's going to rise right there, and when the full moon is rising, it's going to pop up right there. Or when I come downstairs a lot in the early morning, so when I come downstairs in the early morning, it's like the moon might still be there, or if we're dealing with that time period of the waning moon, the moon's going to be rising after I've woken up. So those sorts of things, like, they snap me into a certain headspace. So that's how I beautify my space in my life. You mentioned plants and things like that. What are some of the things that you've done also, just not just in your space, but like in your lifestyle itself to kind of adorn yourself?
It's well, this is an interesting time of year. So obviously November, and so it was 4 years ago I bought my home. And that was a significant shift for me to, go from apartment living to, I still live in an apartment, but I bought my apartment, and to feel like I've got to kind of elevate my game a little bit in terms of my furniture and my surroundings, because like most people, IKEA game is strong. Definitely still had some college furniture going on, definitely had some furniture from high school, like from my growing up home, some pieces, and like pieces that not heirloom pieces, like just some old stuff. And so I kind of felt like 4 years ago that it was time, I used that as a benchmark to kind of purge and get rid of some of like old stuff that I had grown out of, really. It kind of felt like, I'm just going to step into this next phase of life. Like I've bought a home, like which had been a goal of mine. So it's time to really invest in my space, or keep investing in my space. And anybody out there who has gone on this journey, and when you go like furniture shopping for the first time, like not in IKEA, you're like, what? A table is that much, or like a couch is that much? So it was very deliberate. And what actually I appreciated about some of the, that things were more expensive, is I really took my time with furnishing the place. And really, it's taken almost 4 years to feel like the home is kind of where we want it. And I think I mentioned to you, I still want to, my bathroom needs to be renovated, but that's just another project in and of itself. But the really just the individual pieces, and like really taking the time that like every piece that's in the home is very deliberate and intentional. There's nothing random in the home now. Like we made sure of it. We're like, we don't know what that is or where it came from. Like we don't need it. It's out. And we donate. Like we're so lucky where we live. Actually, we have a lot of resources. Literally, resource. That's literally the name of the place. We donate to Resource, or we donate to Goodwill, and if there's something that we've outgrown and we don't need anymore. So I think I've mentioned before, my partner is Iranian, so kind of our plush, like luxurious living, a lot of it has to do with rugs, Persian rugs, and like the real deal. Like we have rugs from Iran, and like they're not easy to get actually, unfortunately, because of sanctions and other things that make it really hard to get your hands on a rug. So you might be like, I have a Persian rug. I want you to check right now and see actually if it comes from Turkey, or if it comes from Turkmenistan, or if it comes from Afghanistan, or if it comes from Pakistan, and see if you actually have a rug from Iran, and let me know, okay? So anyway, I feel like incredibly lucky. Not only do I have these items in my home, but I've actually been to Iran and like literally picked out a lot of items to bring back to the United States in our home. So we've got our rugs. We have this really, I think, beautiful mix of modern living, like a modern aesthetic with an ancient Persian sort of flair. So we do kind of have that mixing of culture in our house. So, which I just love. Like, so the home is actually, it's super warm. It's cozy. It's inviting. It's definitely not sterile. It's not cold at all. Like it's important for me to have this like coziness. Like I don't really feel comfortable if I go into a space and you're like, can I sit on the couch? Like, is that okay? That's, we have pictures in our home of loved ones who've passed on and who are still part of living. And that's important to us to have that in the house. And I have, California is sort of a special place for me. So we've got like I have some cool art of the state of California and some beaches, and we put that in the bathroom. And so, yeah, it's just like a collection. It feels like a merging of two beings, like two people, and where we intersect, and what we appreciate. And then of course, I've mentioned this, I'm very lucky to have an apartment that faces west. So I get sunsets, and I get sunsets over Lake Champlain. And I don't know why it took so long, but it took my boyfriend and I over 3 years so we only have 1,000 square feet. Like that's our apartment. And you might think there's not that many ways to configure 1,000 square feet, but there are. Especially for those of you that I love moving furniture around. It's like, And we had moved furniture around like all the time, but we just hadn't quite figured out, like, as you were talking about the feng shui of like the space, like there was always something not quite right about where our dining room table was. And I'll just try to stay on this visual journey. Like, you walk into our apartment and we have this like long galley kitchen, which is along the south wall. And then you've got facing west, all windows. And so whoever designed the apartment decided, like, we're going to leave, like, the kitchen's going to be literally a straight line along a wall because the focal point is the lake and the Adirondacks, which that was smart, but it's interesting. It's just kind of like open space. And we always kind of kept the dining room table like sort of next to the kitchen, you know, so you'd be preparing food and then we'd have the table right there. And then we kind of had this area where we would put the couches and we would kind of do this little awkward, like, we had chairs and couches and tried to create like a living room space, but it was sort of in a corner. And thankfully I came home one day and my partner Dariush decided to take our couch, and we don't have a television in this space because why would you need one? Right. You've got the lake. So we do have a TV and we have it tucked away in a different room. But he finally just took the couch and just plopped it facing the windows. Why we had never done this before in 3 years. So now, like, in the main space, you walk in and all that energy is in the center of the space, and I can sit down and have my coffee, and I'm, instead of just like looking at the kitchen, which is what used to happen, like I'm staring at the cabinetry and I have to like turn my head to look out. It was kind of a no-brainer, but it was just this breakthrough discovery that we really felt like, oh my God, 3 years in, we like figured out how to live in our space. And I've said to him on more than one occasion, like, we literally have not left the state in 8 months. We haven't gone anywhere. And I mean, look, we do commute to our places of work and back, but when I get home, I'm like, this is my sense of calm. And, you know, I'm very lucky that I don't necessarily have to work out of my home if I don't want to, at least right now. That may change, but so I do use my space as a sanctuary for rest or play, or, you know, I mean, inevitably I do some work out of it because we're entrepreneurs, so I can't really escape that always. But yeah, it was a long-winded answer, but yeah. So I didn't even mention the plants. The plants are kind of second. They've been a newer addition to the family since lockdown. I started buying plants back in April because those made me smile. But yeah, it's I love that the home can reflect, you know, it should reflect who's living in it.
Exactly.
And it should make you happy. And I feel like if you, you know, if you walk into your house and you don't feel a sense of calm or gratitude for like being home, and I've definitely lived in spaces where I don't feel really comfortable in them. I'm sure we all have, or, you know, or you maybe used to live with a roommate and you're like, fuck, I have to go home. You know, we've all been in those spaces, and it's so hard if you don't really love the space that you're going to, that is your sacred shelter, and like, you know, so it's really rewarding to be able to get there and to have that sense of, you know, belonging and comfort.
Totally.
You know.
Totally. And taking the time to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
Which is the whole point of the beautifying space, or adorning oneself or adorning one's space, is it's intentional.
Yeah.
And our intentions that we set are based on who we are in the depths of ourselves. Like you said it perfectly. Like, your space is the intersection of two people, as it should be if you're occupying space with other people. If you're by yourself, then let your space be a full representation of who you are and the things that inspire you. You know, like, where's that energy going to come from? Where's that thing that you're going to see that's going to remind you of the reason why you're going after whatever you're going after? It might be as simple as turning the couch, you know, whereas the couch might be making you think to yourself, I really should be looking over there. Well, you can turn the couch and you can just look over there, you know, that sort of thing. So, just kind of saying that to the listener too is just like, take advantage of whatever pieces of control that you have to put your life energy in the direction that you need it to be in, you know? And like, I want to be deliberate about that because we all have different levels of control over our situations. We all have similar levels of control over ourselves, you know, like, this is my space in this skin here, and it's up to me what goes down here. That is my own privilege in this moment. But at the same time, sometimes we just have to claim what space that we can claim. So even if it's just putting a couple trinkets on the dresser that remind us of a thing, or if it's as big as remodeling a whole house or taking down a wall and putting some windows there or whatever it is, just take the time to realize that you have that as your kind of birthright in a lot of ways. You know, it's your skin, it's your body, it's your space that you're occupying, and use your own power to empower yourself. Use your own power to level yourself up, to bring yourself into that energetic place that allows you to be more fully yourself, if you will.
I love that. We're going to end right there because that is just such like an empowering and inspirational, like, I don't know, call to action or something, right, for yourself. So this is the week of Thanksgiving, so I just want to say that on the podcast. And, you know, whatever that looks like for you this year, I think take that moment for yourself too. As Mujib said, it's such good advice. And, you know, whether or not you are alone or with anyone else on Thursday, like, take a moment and adorn yourself and just kind of, you know, take care of you. And, yeah, it's going to feel good.
Totally.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Episode 16 of Let's Get to It. My name is Sarah.
My name is Mujib.
Take care, everybody.